So recently here at Comicstorian, we've been doing a couple of events and a couple of big things in the comic books, such as Batman fighting a robot Batman, or a god coming down to the planet to judge all of humanity, or, Dark Crisis, where I don't know what's going on, but people are dying and then coming immediately back to life. And I'm getting a lot of comments that are, while a lot of people seem to like this type of content, there are some comments going, well, this doesn't matter. I'm so tired of Batman losing his city. The gods came down and judged humanity in a way that I wasn't happy about it. And what the heck is even going on in Dark Crisis? I agree. What the heck is even going on in Dark Crisis? So today, I decided to bring back an old series here at Comicstorian where I get to rant about things going on in the world of comic books. And today, I want to rant about why I think you, the people who are complaining about this stuff, not the ones who are enjoying it, but the ones who are complaining about it, are maybe not finding as much interest in the world of comic books right now. Because there's a reason behind this, and I have my own theory, and I'd like to go into that. But before we get into that, I want to tell you about our new sponsor. So we are now sponsored by GamerSupps. That's this hoodie right here. GamerSupps is a company that makes energy drinks, and I find them to be a little less chalky than a lot of their competitors. But they don't only make energy drinks. They also make sustainable bars. As someone who watches his macros and what he's eating, a Rice Krispie treat with 20 grams of protein and a low carb count is something that I'm looking for on a regular basis. But they also make one more product that had me really excited to work with them. Again, I divert your attention to this hoodie with anime women on the cover. Well, that is from a part of their brand known as the Waifu Cups. What is a Waifu Cup, you ask? Bam! 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 Those are the Waifu Cups. They do these as limited runs, and you can get the Waifu Cups, and then you can get your energy drink and put it in a Waifu Cup while wearing a hoodie in a basement that is way too warm, but you're hiding, being all sweaty, and you want to show off the hoodie anyway, and that's just the situation I'm in. If you go right now and use the link down below to GamerSupps and use the code COMICS, you get 10% off of your order to celebrate us signing up with them as our new sponsor. So, yeah. All right, so let's get into the core of this video. Why do I think some people are not finding American comic books interesting anymore? Well, honestly, it's circular storytelling. You may have heard this through the grapevine and stuff like that. Now, I know there's going to be a subsection of our audience that are going to be like, no, comics are woke now. And I'll address that, but I don't think that's the main reason. Because if you're still buying the comic books and your complaint is that the event didn't have any lasting effects, or you're buying a Batman book and your complaint is that Batman is just losing the city of Gotham again, then your complaint doesn't reference that other complaint that other side of the audience likes to throw out there. So let's talk about that for a moment. Events and them not having a lasting effect. Well, I'm here to break it to you, but no event in comic books, Marvel or DC, has ever had a long-term lasting effect. It's just the nature of American comic book storytelling. You see, in Marvel and DC, they always need to go back to the status quo, no matter what. Because there's toys, there's video games, there's cartoons, and there's movies that they're trying to promote. They're trying to get you to get that stuff. And you can't have a random new Spider-Man because that's just not how American comic books work. They want to have Peter Parker down in his luck, has no money, and that's the one that they can put into various things. Now, you might be going, Benny, but there are events that I feel have had lasting effects. Let's go over some of those real quick. Civil War is well known, one of the best Marvel events out there. Did it have lasting effects? For a select number of superheroes. Civil War following that for about 6 months turned into a thing that was like, oh, don't forget about the Superhuman Registration Act. Don't forget about the Superhuman Registration Act. And it only affected a small number of superheroes. Secret Wars is another fan favorite event. But the ending of that event just got rid of the Ultimate Universe, which was already a dying line of comics, and they moved over characters that they found interesting, such as Miles Morales. And they also poached Old Man Logan, but that wasn't related to the Ultimate Universe. But we got Miles Morales out of that. That was the lasting effect from Secret Wars. What about Secret Empire? Wildly diverse event, but maybe you liked it, maybe you hated it. Huge event. Huge sweeping changes in the Marvel landscape. Well, all we got out of that was an evil Captain America that got killed off by Deadpool a year later, and he didn't show up until his death. And we lost Black Widow, kind of, maybe. I'm still unclear if she's just running around as a clone or herself at this point. But the point is, Secret Empire didn't really do anything to anybody else in the Marvel Universe outside of Captain America. His book was him trying to redeem his name and his title and redeem America because everyone thought he was evil. But what I'm saying is, lasting effects in the Marvel Universe, none of these stories did that. They all affected small individuals and their way of doing things. The biggest one, when I brought this up on our Discord, the Comicstorian Discord, to just get people's opinions and see what they thought about different events was, well, Benny, what about House of M? House of M had huge ramifications for the X-Men. You're not wrong. I will give you that one, except all the important X-Men weren't affected. So that was one of those events where they could reference it if they wanted it to, but don't worry, the main X-Men team is still running around without a problem. And the only known X-Man that I know got affected was Jubilee, who wasn't exactly a fan favorite ever since the 90s because she does the fireworks, pew, and they just turned her into a vampire anyway. Lasting effects from events don't generally happen. They just don't. And just to reference real quick, the event that finally made me decide to make this video, Axe, it had lasting effects. The Eternals are completely changed. There's a new god, and they are no longer able to revive, or they at least told everyone what they're doing and they revive. That is a big change for the Eternals. The reason why everyone says that Axe doesn't have any lasting effects is because a god was literally walking on the planet, and no one even remembers it happened, apparently. So, I mean, but what I'm saying is, every event has lasting effects for a small number of people. But you also got to think of the other thing that happens whenever we do have massive, sweeping changes. Recently, Ben Reilly became Chasm. The fan base massively divided about how it's a terrible idea and they need to get rid of that. Okay, so if Ben Reilly can't become Chasm, he's got to go back to being Scarlet Spider. Let's go back a few years to when Dan Slott turned Peter Parker into an actual success and he made Parker Industries. People still to this day talk about that being the worst period in Dan Slott's Spider-Man run. What about when Wolverine finally passed away and Laura Kinney took over, and of all the characters that got the legacy titling, I think is one of the most deserved characters. Her father died, she took the title. That divided the fandom again. Just bring back Wolverine, just bring back Wolverine, just bring back Wolverine. The problem we run into is the people who like DC and Marvel is a massive number of people. And for every person who wants Ben Reilly to become Chasm or to redeem himself, or every person wants Logan to die and X-23 to take over, there's another person who just wants another story of Logan going into a swamp and mass murdering some random doctor. They're trying to please all of the fans. And the easiest way to please every fan is to constantly go back to status quo, which then makes it super easy for the marketing arm when they go, check out the new Spider-Man line of shoes. So what I think is going on with a lot of people who have been, like myself, been reading comics for 30, 40, 50 years. I'm not that old, but there are people that have been reading them that long. I have been reading comics consistently for probably about 20 years. We get to the used to it. Batman's going to die. Oh, but I know Batman's coming back. You know, God is coming down to judge the earth, but they're going to throw away the God and the earth's going to go back to normal. You're not wrong, but we've gotten used to that kind of storytelling. For me, when these kinds of stories happen, I just get excited that something cool is happening, and I acknowledge the fact that they're not going to have any lasting effects. Now, there is another reason why we don't have lasting effects. It's the constantly changing writers, and that is something that I will touch more on when I get to manga, but generally, part of the issue is simply this. Tom King comes in and does 100 issues of Batman. In his 100 issue of Batman run, he reflects things that he has done to change Batman's character and change Gotham City as a whole. But when he leaves after 100 issues, somebody else comes in and wants to tell a different story. So in Batman's situation, Tom King told a story in which Batman was trying to redeem himself in Gotham. Batman finally got happy and then had all of that ripped away by Bane and his father. Love it or hate the storyline, that's what happened in 100 issues. At the end of the whole thing, he was supposed to then go through a recovery storyline where he kind of gets back to normal. But we swapped writers. The new writer came in, did Joker War. So Batman immediately lost Gotham City to the Joker, and then we had to do an entire thing where Batman had to learn to trust the people. That's a different writer that came in. Then, after Joker War, that writer decided to tell his story involving Ghostmaker, Clown Hunter, and Harley Quinn. That story went on for like 20 issues, ending in the Fear State, which was another thing of Batman losing the city. Then he left. He left the comic. So a new writer came in and wanted to tell his story. His story is Failsafe. Batman is basically losing Gotham again, but to Failsafe. That's part of the problem of constantly swapping writers. They all have a different idea, which is only slightly different from the other idea. So for, in Batman versus Bane in the city of Bane, Batman lost the city of Bane and Bane turned it into like a criminal state or something like that. But then when Joker took over, it was an all-out war. And then when Scarecrow took over, he was trying to set up Future State. And then when Failsafe took over, I don't know what's going on because that storyline is still going. But the point I'm making is they all have a slight variation of the same idea. And since Batman always has to go back to his status quo, that means that Batman will always be in a place where a new writer can come in and make Batman lose Gotham. Now, technically speaking, Batman's lost Gotham like every 2 years since the dawn of time. He's the worst superhero ever. But next, I want to talk about another thing, because people might go, oh no, Benny, it's not circular storytelling. We get that. There's a subsection of the comic book fandom that would love to argue that comics are now going woke and therefore they're doing terribly. First off, sales in comics have done nothing but gone up. Like, I'm not even joking. 2021, they finally broke the $2 billion as an industry marker. They have sold $2 billion in comics, $2 billion in comics. That has been doing nothing but going up every year except for 1 year where it plateaued out. So comics are dying is not something that is going on. They're shifting. They're shifting to being more graphic novels and doing more contained storylines, but they're not dying. But once again, we get back to the subsection of people that want to argue that comic books are woke. So I wanted to touch on that briefly before we move on, because I think it's just people getting tired of circular storytelling. Now, the problem with the argument of comic books are woke is that comic books have always been woke. Comic books have always followed up with whatever agenda is currently going on. The feminist agenda back in the 1960s, well, we had Captain Marvel's introduction. We had Black Power movement, followed up immediately by Black Panther. Civil rights movement was the X-Men. The first openly gay superhero came in 1979, which was following an entire movement in the LGBTQ community to gain more rights. That was across most of the 70s, ending with, hey, now we have an openly gay character in comic books. This is the 60s and 70s, guys, so this isn't a new thing that's going on. So the counter argument then would easily be, Benny, there's just more woke comics than there ever was before. Also not true, at least from the research that I have done. I did a full list of every comic book that came out in DC Comics in the month of September, okay? And I'm going to pull out my notes of this one because I don't want to get the numbers wrong. So looking at the comic books that came out for DC Comics in the month of September, we had 38 books featuring general storylines. Batman fighting Failsafe, Nightwing's fighting against Bloodhaven, that kind of a thing. You had normal storylines going on. We had 8 books with female leads, which, if you're worried about the whole woke argument, you might think, oh, that's bad. No, it's Wonder Woman, Batgirl, Catwoman, Harley Quinn, normal superheroes who have had books for many, many years. 3 comic books featuring people of color. I'm not sure which ones those were at this point because I did this research a little while ago, but I do know the new Batman was one of them. But again, that's not something that's out of the ordinary. We've had superheroes from like Static Shock. We've had Icon. They've all had comic books in the past. And then we had 4 of them with LGBTQ leads, which right now are John Kent and Tim Drake. Those were the books with those. And then there was 3 kind of like had a mix of stories that could fall into any kind of a category. But the point I wanted to bring up with that is that that's the same number of comic books that have female leads, people of color, and LGBTQ that we've had for years. Even if you want to argue the LGBTQ angle, we had Batwoman, we had Midnighter, and we had John Constantine back in 2011. So the number hasn't changed. So that's why I don't think that argument holds much weight in the argument of why am I no longer interested in comic books. The reason why you might think that that is a big deal is because of social media. It's super easy to get on social media, claim I hate something, get everyone else to agree with it, and then we think the only thing going on in DC Comics right now is John Kent being bi, even though there are 38 books that are traditional comic books. The point I'm making is I don't think that the outliers who like to run around going comic books are woke are the reason why comic book people are getting irritated with events. We've always had superheroes die and come back to life. We've always had the world end and then get remade. We've always had everything happening in general. I mean, House of M was even reverted. The longest running event, even though it was non-important X-Men, still got reverted with Krakoa. They eventually revert it because everything has to go back to the status quo. So the argument I think at this point is if you were worried about circular storytelling and Batman died again and the Justice League died again and the world is ending again and what is even happening in Dark Crisis and I wish Axe had more ramifications, maybe it's time to move on to a different type of comic book. If you want to stay in the American comic books, Invincible, Radiant Black. Two great examples of comic books that have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Radiant Black is still going, but if you want to do more beginning, middle, end comic books, Power Rangers. Power Rangers has sweeping changes that permanently stay with the characters as we're going. But I think what you're looking for is more manga-style storytelling. The story My Hero Academia is literally referencing things in volume 29 and 30 that started in volume 2 and 3. It's one guy writing it. Going back to what I said about Tom King, to James Tynion, to Joshua Williamson, to Chip Zdarsky, one guy's writing My Hero Academia, and that's how it works with a lot of manga. Yes, there are the outliers. I know someone's going to go, but Benny, Dragon Ball Z has Goku coming back to life every other day. Yes, there are those ones that exist and go on forever and ever and ever. That is going to happen. But more often than not, manga comes to an ending, which means the anime will come to an ending because they have one direction for the story. And then if it picks back up and comes back, they make sweeping changes to make that viable. I think the problem with American storytelling is when you end up seeing the world end 4 times in 1 year, you get a little burned out on the concept. So you need to start reading events like Dark Crisis and Axe for what they are. A fun, sprawling adventure that is going to feature a bunch of your favorite characters, and you're going to see how they're going to get affected. And then in 4 months, everyone's going to go back to being normal. It's the only way you can really enjoy it, I think, at this point. Or check out Radiant Black. The book's incredible. Now, I did mention manga, but this video's already run probably like 15 to 20 minutes with Dan looking at me. So I think the next rant we're going to have is why I think that manga is outselling American comic books and why I feel manga has turned itself into a jumping on point to get into the world of comics. Because manga and comic books are all comic books. I know. Someone's gonna argue, no, they're all sold in the graphic novel section, everyone. Oh, and one more thing. Okay, so I didn't realize people thought this, but apparently because I've been wearing the hat now for the last year, people think I'm going bald. It's the exact opposite. I've literally just been growing my hair out and I don't know what to do with it, and the hat makes it look cleaner, okay? So if you're one of the people that thought I was going bald, exact opposite. I get approached by a doctor and he was like, oh, are you going bald? Is that why you wear hats? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, okay? So just all you naysayers, anybody have ideas what to do with this?